Hello everybody, it's Wyvern here with another bit of Total War Warhammer 2 Quick Match gameplay. This time around we are on the Altar of Ultimate Darkness, playing as Brettonians against Chaos. And this is, if there's a tough matchup for Brettonia, this is definitely one of them. The main reason being Shagath and Kolek, as well as of course Fate of Buna, and incredibly tanky anti-large infantry. So going into this match, I knew that things could definitely get a little hairy, and I kind of tried to build to counteract whatever my opponent might bring. For my Lord Fanchantress, as I'm fond of saying, she is probably the most competitive pick for Brettonia. If you're running one of the other lords, most matchups, they're not as good. Not even Lewin, much less Bordello, who's terrible, or any of the non-legendaries. Now, she does have the Chalice of Potions, she does have Favor of the Fae, of course, Arcane Conduit, Regrowth, Mist of the Lady, Earthblood, and Life Bloom. So, all around decent. She does cause Fear, which can be okay against Chaos. She does have some decent magic resist of 60%, I do believe, so basically invulnerable to that stuff. And so yeah, she's definitely decent. She is backed here by her Grail Guardians, although they won't do well against most Chaos troops. If my opponent goes Marauder heavy, they can do okay, and obviously they will just hold their ground for hopefully a long time. For my front line, 2 Men-at-Arms, Foot Squires, they are backed by the Beast Slayers of Bastogne, who they won't do well against. If my opponent goes infantry heavy, they won't do well against the infantry, but they can hold. They'll time down. They've got 53 melee defense. So basically a holding comp that can do some hurt. 2 vanilla peasant bowmen ready to lay down the smackdown on Marauder Horsemen or Kolek or any of those units. And then of course the main strike force is on the flank. So we've got 2 units of questing knights on this end. No Grail Knights in this comp, and you might be wondering why. Well, the reason being that while Grail Knights are decent against large, that they are not going to do too well. They're pretty expensive, and they are not going to do great against Chaos Warriors. They're not going to do great against Chosen. They're not going to do great against Chosen with Halberds. So you really need. I figured that I'd be better off with some slightly squishier and not vigor immune cav that can actually do some AP damage, especially because it's cheaper rather than bringing a bunch of Grail Knights. On the other flank, we do have a Green Knight who, of course, does have the Dolorous Blade. He does a lot of damage. He's got magic damage. He's definitely good. And then the companion is Quenellus, who is really strong. In the meantime, my opponent here did bring some Marauder Horsemen. An interesting but not bad pick necessarily against Brettonia. These guys do have bronze shields, so they actually soaked up that first volley okay, especially because my opponent was very quick on the draw and moving out of the way. And in the meantime, I'm trying to pivot my archers around to try to deal with these guys, get them off the field, get them out of the way, because I really don't want them hurting my unshielded, not physical resist lacking questing knights. The main striking force, of course, for my opponent's build is his infantry, as most Chaos builds are. Now, no Dragon Ogre Shagath, which I think is a bit of a mistake. Dragon Ogre Shagath can be really strong against Brettonia, who doesn't have too many tools to crack large, single model, heavily or reasonably well armored targets. My opponent does have a bunch of Chaos Marauders, a front line of Chosen with Grey Weapons, as well as Chaos Warriors with Grey Weapons. Personally, I think against Brettonia, Chosen with Halberds are the way to go. While these guys will definitely dumpster Foot Squires or Men-at-Arms much more easily, and they will still do well against Cav, Halberds will still do well against infantry, which Brettonia is not good with anyway to begin with, and they will do a lot better against Cav. For the rest of the comp, more Chaos Marauders, who will of course overrun Men-at-Arms and can get into the backline pretty easily, some Chaos Warriors, and then some good old-fashioned Dragon Ogres. So, pretty wide build, which is always good against the fact when you've got an opponent who has such a thin line. Definitely, I think, a little bit of an odd choice with the Grey Weapons, but otherwise, definitely a very strong build, and definitely has sort of an answer for just about everything. This Chaos Sorcerer of Death here on foot actually only has Fate of Buna, so no Spirit Leech. Once again, not necessarily a bad pick, but it does mean my opponent does not have many answers to the Green Knight. Now over here, a little bit of a mistake. My opponent did try to charge in with his Chaos Horseman because I sort of left my Peasant Bowman a little bit exposed, trying to bait him in. And the bait actually worked. My opponent charges into the Bowman, and I'm actually going to get some lovely counter charges. A little slow on this flank, but you know what? We kill a few of them. These guys lose over half their strength. The archers are going to do some great work, and there's quite a bit of damage onto these Marauder Horsemen. Seeing my opponent is closing in on me and not wanting to engage right away, we are simply going to pull back, retreat down the hill a little bit. You can see these Marauder Horsemen definitely not having the best of days, even against those pitiful peasant bows, and they're going to lose a few models before they get out. On this flank, they have rallied, but they are very low, under half strength. And at this point, finally, lines are being drawn. That little sort of foray at the beginning definitely came out favorable to me, but nothing too fancy or decisive either way. A little bit of poke and prod. These Marauder Horsemen are going to rout a second time, actually, before getting back into the fight, which is good for me. But I do believe they rally right before they reach the board edge, which is unfortunate. You can see just before they got away, so that's kind of sad. I would have definitely hoped they escape. Over here, the archers once again just zoning off these Marauder Horsemen. teaching him a lesson and getting him away. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to send the Green Knight in. You can see he's just going to charge straight in. He's going to plow through, or try to plow through. I had him going after the Chaos Sorcerer of Death, and then we're going to follow immediately after with the Ground Knights and the Fey Enchantress trying to get in, tie these guys down. I didn't want to get you getting caught by the Halberds, but my opponent immediately counteracts with the Fate of Buna and starts melting my Grail Guardians down. So definitely some rough stuff going down. We do have the Fey Enchantress in here providing her own Mortis Engine effect, providing that AoE debuff, but I was a little slow on the heals there, so that's going to be a bit of a pain. As for the rest of the fight, over here, a single unit of men-at-arms courageously fighting for the lady and for the king, all alone against a horde of chosen with great weapons, against Kolek. Even these Chaos Marauders could dump to these guys, and with all of this on these poor peasants, they don't stand a chance. You can see they're just being sent flying, getting demolished. But in the pits, things are looking much better. We've got the Beast Slayers of Brettonia in the fight. My opponent definitely overextending a little bit with his Dragon Ogres, who are very slow. They've only got 64 mobility, which is really bad. And now suddenly all these Questing Knights are on top of them, hacking them to bits. So disastrous position. My opponent isn't able to get his Chaos Warriors with Halberds into the fight to support him. And the Dragon Ogres here are being forced off, having taken quite a pounding for very little gain. Over on this flank, though, the Fey Enchantress getting beaten down. The Grail Guardians really taking a beating. I try to use Regrowth, but still just getting belted. The Green Knight is, however, holding his own, and he's doing quite a bit of damage to the Chaos Sorcerer of Death, but the Dragon Ogres do escape. They are going to get into the fight. That said, although the balance of power is kind of balanced right now, my opponent, it's definitely a little bit of an odd choice. Now, granted, my opponent has overrun this flank very quickly. The men-at-arms just snapped and ran, but my opponent did lose an entire unit of horsemen. The archers will rally, and perhaps more importantly, my opponent's halberds are now tied down and not the greatest positions. You can see the Grail Guardians here actually route 31 models, so definitely pretty sad. It's one of the... I've had a few games now where Grail Guardians just get like very quickly wrecked, and it always surprises me. Usually they do really well. But here in the pits, between the Green Knight and the Fey Enchantress, we are holding okay. And I'm actually able to cycle my Questing Knights around, use the Beast Slayers of Brettonia to plug this gap. And all these troops, they're not going to be able to wipe them out. They're going to struggle. Over here, the Foot Squires are going to zone off these Chaos Marauders. My opponent wasting his throwing axe ammo on the Foot Squires, which, you know, they are armored, they are unshielded, so they're technically not a bad choice, but really, he could have dumpstered them with anything else. Would have been much better against the Questing Knights. And over here, although the Fey Enchantress is getting the stuffing beaten out of her, we're going to get a greedy, beautiful lance formation rear charge here, and absolutely start demolishing these guys. The Fey Enchantress is going to be able to pull the way through her Knights. The Green Knight is in there with the Dolores Blade active, trying to snipe out the Chaos Sorcerer of Death, really beating the snot out of this guy. The Grail Guardians come back, a pincer move. The Chaos Warriors are actually going to start routing to Terror, because of course the Green Knight is in there. And now my opponent's army is actually going to snowball route. You can see the Dragon Ogres here getting terrified. Of course, the Green Knight with that Terror just coming in there, causing absolute mayhem. And this entire formation, this entire pocket, Chosen included, is actually going to break the Terror. So a big win for me. Now, granted, it's not swinging any battles just yet, but definitely very nifty. Over here, I'm just going to pull the Foot Squires away. They shouldn't be pursuing. I definitely overextended. Marshers back online, chipping away at the Chaos Warriors with Halberds, who are by far the biggest threat to my army here. And now we're able to just wipe this pocket out. So this is, at this point, balance of power is actually shifting in my favor. Now the Fey Enchantress here getting broken and being forced to rout, but she does have enough speed to escape Kolek. And I do have the Green Knight pursuing him very aggressively. As my opponent's army just falls apart here. Now he's lost his Dragon Ogre Shaggots, which I don't, or his Dragon Ogres, I don't even know where they, I guess they got wiped. Didn't realize they got wiped out. But his Chaos Sorcerer of Death here fleeing for dear life, so I'm sending the Green Knight after him. And the Fey Enchantress does rally. A little bit of a, I think a little bit of a mistake here on my opponent's part. He could have perhaps intercepted her with the Marauder Horsemen and perhaps forced her off the map. So a little bit of a mistake there, but you know what? It's okay. Pinterest just rally, and she's going to start falling back. Anytime these Beast Slayers of Brettonia still on 50 leadership, despite things definitely not going their way, despite them being again in a pretty crappy spot here against Chaos Marauders. It's important to keep in mind, though, that these guys are cheap. They cost 850, Chaos Marauders are 375 a pop, so this is almost a cost-efficient trade for me. And given the mayhem these guys could be causing in my backline, I'm definitely rather have them tied down here on a unit of Beast Slayers. In the meantime, my opponent is drawing up his halberds here to just defend this flank, knowing full well that he can't really advance into my cavalry, but just wanting to zone me off while he mops up my infantry. Not a bad move. And he is able to rout off my peasant build, which is a bit of a problem. Kolek, of course, is still a monster. He causes fear, terror, and peasants don't hold up all that well. But the other peasants are coming back. The men-at-arms here chasing after these Chosen, trying to tie them down. I was really trying to keep my opponent's army separated at this point to exploit my cavalry advantage. So you can see we do get a nice little Earthblood. We mobbed up our troops. We got a beautiful Earthblood there. And now we are regrouping for a new charge. So you can see my Grail Guardians in here with 26 models. The Questing Knights in there. And I feign a charge on the halberds. charge the Green Knight in there. The Green Knight's not going to get his charge bonus, but it doesn't matter. The reason being, we're just going to disrupt their formation and then get a beautiful, meaty side charge. And you can see these guys are going to get absolutely shredded. The leadership's going to tank. And Questing Knights, despite the fact they're not really meant against anti-large infantry, will still do well in this situation. You can see my opponent is actually pulls these Chaos Warriors with halberds, but it's a less than ideal situation because they were facing that way. Their formation is very thin, and we are going to get a beautiful Chalice of Potions here as these Chaos Warriors with halberds break. Bombardment hits, Chaos Warriors with halberds in a terrible spot, getting wrecked, and the terror kicks in. So the terror is, at this point, is just snowballing things out of control for my opponent. The Chosen are still intact though. Kolek is still intact, so definitely it's not game over just yet. You can see the Chaos Warriors with halberds here getting mopped up. I'm trying to get them as dead as possible before charging down in a glorious Rohirrim charge straight down the hill into the flanks of these Chaos Marauders, into the flanks of the Chosen, trying to just rout these troops off the field. You see the Questing Knights in there. We still have a lot of Questing Knights, so even if my opponent's Chosen are able to hold for a little bit, you can see the terror kicking in, these guys just falling apart. Green Knight is in there. He's actually healed back up to full over time because he hasn't been taking too much damage recently, and he's getting in there. He's going to start beating up on Kolek. Kolek, despite his pretty good melee stats, the Green Knight's really solid in his own right, so definitely don't underestimate him. He's definitely going to be able to do okay here. And my opponent's army is simply going to rout. You can see my Fan Chantress there hiding out on the periphery. But yeah, a bit of a fun build. Grail Guardians got nuked and routed incredibly quickly, which caught me completely off guard. Didn't see that coming, actually. And the fate of Buna and going on against Chosen with great weapons. Not the best positions for him, but I really did expect them to hold a little longer. They were on 31 models still when they broke and fled, so definitely a big problem there. But, you know, they tried. They did okay. For the rest of the comp, definitely performing pretty well. The Questing Knights were just absolute beasts. The Green Knight's Fear and Terror was huge. And the fact that he could snipe out my opponent's Lord, the fact that he could snipe out Kolek a little bit, was a really big boon. I actually think the Green Knight does have a bit of a niche here. Your opponent can obviously bring Spirit Leech. He could have Sarthoriel. He could have the Summoner's Rage, which you should avoid like the plague if you've got the Green Knight, but really there's not too many tools that your opponent can bring that will reliably kill the Green Knight, and in that sort of situation, the Green Knight will do really well. So I think he can be a good choice here. He'll hold up. He'll even hold up well against the Chaos Warriors with halberds. And if you cut corners from relative to the usual sort of quad Grail Knight strat that I run, if you cut some money off with the Questing Knights instead of Grail Knights, and then get the Green Knight in there, you basically have the same cost of a Cav contingent, which is really nice. But yeah, otherwise, I do think this is an okay build. The Foot Squire is doing surprisingly well, 94 kills. They can definitely be pretty beastly. One of the things they've got going for them is very high weapon strength, so if you're able to, and I hit him in this game, I hit him with a Favor of the Fae early on, and one of the cool things about these guys is that while they're not amazing, they do have very high weapon strength. They've got weapon strength of 35, plus bonus versus infantry of 9, so you can get like 44 weapon strength out of these guys. That means they're basically two-shotting most infantry. They're probably two-shotting some of these Chaos Warriors. Definitely two-shotting the Marauders with their terrible armor. So it gives them a surprising need. They can definitely do well. If you're able to buff them to the point that they're hitting consistently, they're actually kind of a beastly unit in just a raw offensive manner. So definitely they can do okay. I might try an infantry build sometime against Chaos and see how that works out. But Questing Knights, yeah, they did pretty good. They did as expected. Archers, not so well, but they did bait my opponent's horsemen, and they helped chip them down a bit, so that's worth. For my opponent's build, like I said, I wouldn't bring Chosen with great weapons. If you're going against Brettonia, bring Chosen with halberds. Much better choice. In my opinion, I'd probably overhaul this whole build if I was going against Brettonia. While going wide is definitely not a bad idea, I would probably try to bring like 2 or 3 Chosen with halberds. Spread out on the peripheries with Chaos Marauders, and then bring Kolek and a second Dragon Ogre Shagath. It would give you a much more, I think, stable anti-large contingent. Dragon Ogres, while they are strong, will do terrible, especially against Grail Knights. Grail Knights will dumpster them hard. And they won't do well against... they really don't do that great. I don't know. They're an okay unit, but I don't think that when push comes to shove, especially with the healing support that Brettonia can put on the field, I think you're much better off bringing a second Dragon Ogre Shagath than a Kolek. Especially because you can just park on top of your infantry line, park on top of your Chosen with halberds, and beat the snot out of any cav coming your way. Plus providing that Fear and Terror to crump an infantry line. Regardless, good game to my opponent, Puppet Master here. I do hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you found it entertaining. If you did, be sure to leave a like and subscribe down below. If you have any comments, any criticism, any questions about the game, anything like that, be sure to share them, and I will respond as soon as I can. As usual, guys, I do appreciate you watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Over and out.